Hey everyone. So my name is Riz Akhtar. I'm one of the directors of the Australian Electric Vehicle Association, and I also write for The Driven. So thanks for attending, and hope you all had a pretty good lunch. There was lots of food there. I think everyone's well fed. Now this stream is going to be talking about the challenges and opportunities around electric vehicle charging. There's been a lot of talk about charging in apartments, what local governments are doing, what do city builders and planners need to do. So we'll have a couple of experts who will come up and share their insights into what's happening at different levels when it comes to electric vehicle charging, but at the same time, we'll then catch up at the very end with a panel discussion, sort of talking mainly about those challenges and opportunities, and then we'll have a few questions. It's Dunstan Power, who will be talking to us about EV charging challenges around the world, and he's joining us from all the way from the UK.
Hi, yes, so I only landed yesterday, so if I talk any nonsense, that's my excuse. So yes, my name's Dunstan Power, as we said, as Riz said. I'm the MD of a company called Versinetic, and we basically manufacture a set of electronics and software components for smart chargers for companies around the world, and also load balancing solutions. So during the last few years, since COVID, I've travelled in the course of export activities to quite a few countries, and it's been very interesting to see where different countries are in terms of their journey towards electrification and public infrastructure in particular. So what are the challenges? There's quite a lot of differences between countries, and there's reasons for that. So the sort of key challenges we have are effectively around sort of these listed things, but in particular the political landscape. And there's no better example of that than Australia, of course, with your change of government last year. But also, wealth inequality. There was a talk earlier about density, and that's quite an interesting thing. I mean, Australia is very different, for instance, to the UK in terms of density. In a way, we've almost got the opposite problem, that things get too dense because of population density. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to talk about a few of the countries around the world and their EV infrastructure at the moment. So obviously I'll start with Australia, really just as a benchmark. So you can see you've currently got about 130,000 EVs on the road. And as mentioned earlier, currently 8% of new car sales are EV. Now, the bottom thing is the ratio of the number of cars per public charger. So Australia, you're currently at 35. That's based on the figures that I've seen. Which is quite a poor ratio. And that you've got a lot of cars per charger, but you're still quite early on the EV journey, say, compared to some of the European countries. So, I mean, this won't be news to anybody here who drives an EV, I'm sure. However, I'm very optimistic about Australia in terms of EV adoption, because one massive benefit you've got over countries, say like the UK, is you've got huge amounts of installed solar PV. So 30 to 40% of houses in Australia have got PV. And that's a really big sales advantage for EVs, because basically you can sell the dream of people driving for free. To give you an example, in the UK, it's about 6% have got PV installation. And also, as you probably know, we have a lot less sunshine than you do. So, yeah, talk about the UK next. So, this is in comparison. You can see about 23% of new car sales are currently EVs, and we've got a ratio of 23 cars per charger. But this is what you'll actually see. So we actually had about 6 cars per charger till 2019. And then at that point, we started this really steep hockey stick rise because of new car sales massively outstripping the rate of installation of chargers. So I guess the challenge for Australia compared to this is that you're already at 35 cars per charger, but you're sort of probably about 2 years behind where the UK is in terms of getting EVs. One real problem that we've got in the UK is that we've got lots and lots of charge point operators, and this can be a real pain in the neck when you're stopping to charge, because you have to get a new app on your phone. It might be raining. It rains quite a lot in the UK, and you're there and you're thinking, I want to go to my meeting. I've got to download an app. I've got to put my credit card details in. So the government's really aware of that. I'm not a big fan of our government for various reasons, but they have been pretty good in terms of EV adoption. And they've brought in these regulations in 2022, which have mandated that all high-power chargers now, or en route chargers, have to be open to everyone, not to be locked down through an app, and have to have basically contactless payment. So go on to the next. Sorry, I can't move the slide on. Yeah. One thing to say that's happened, unfortunately, recently in the UK is there's been a bit of a backlash against EVs. Again, I don't think this is unique to Britain. There's some absolute nonsensical articles being pushed, particularly in the sort of right-wing media. And actually, this is sort of dampening our move towards EVs. And our government has recently moved the target from 2030 to stop ICE sales. They've moved it back to 2035 as basically as a result of that political pressure. So next, let's look at the EU as a whole. So basically the EU has adopted a 2035 target for elimination of ICE sales, and they've brought in a thing called Fit for 55, which is basically they're aiming to reduce emissions by 55% by 2026. And what they're doing is, that map shows all the main trunk roads in the EU. They're basically mandating that every 60 kilometres you have to have a 400 kilowatt charge station, set of charge stations. So at least one charger has to be a 150 kilowatt charger, rapid charger, and overall needs to be 400 kilowatts, and that has to be by 2026. And then by 2028, they're going to increase that, so it's 600 kilowatts. So within the EU, we've got the Netherlands, and the Netherlands is the world leader in terms of charger density. Sorry, my massive clicker problems here. Yeah, so we can see that they've got the highest charger density in the world. They've got 42% now of all new car sales in Holland are EVs, but they've still managed to retain 6 cars per charger. So they're doing really well. So the Netherlands, it's the home of the OHCI, which is the OCPP language, which is what car chargers use to talk to their back office, and they've got a unified payment system across all their chargers, basically, and that's been a real way that they've managed to increase charger usage and made it much less painful than the UK in terms of charging. If we look at one problem they have is they have 3-phase power in their houses, which basically means that they can quite quickly, if you've got a single-phase car, you can overload your chargers, so you overload the house, so which is a problem also shared with Germany. So Germany is 800,000 people in Germany work in the car industry, and they're heavily invested in diesel and petrol, and that's put a real a brake on adoption of EVs in Germany. But they're still doing pretty well. They've got 37% car sales and at 13 cars per charger. But actually the ratio, that 37% has actually decreased from where it was in 2021, where it was over 40%. And again, it's basically because the car industry, the lobby, is sort of pushing back on promoting EVs. So, yeah, next, if we look at France, one thing I just wanted to mention about France quickly is they've brought in regulations that all car parks that have more than 80 spaces have to have solar canopies. I think this would be a fantastic thing for Australia to introduce, because in France, the average French city is 2,000 hours of sunshine. In Australia, it's 3,000 hours. And so this is a sort of unique policy to France, but actually it's one that would work really, really well over here because it offsets the infrastructure you need actually to charge cars, do public charging. Yeah, I'm sort of running out of time here. But so if we talk about Japan, Japan's sort of interesting because it's very like Germany. It's got a big automotive industry, which is also very, very conservative. But you can see they've got a tiny amount of EV sales. Japan basically was very quick to adopt electrification, but through hybrid cars, so the Toyota Prius being the leading one. And they installed lots of chargers. They were very early to have infrastructure subsidies and to install chargers. The problem they've now got is they've actually got a reduction in the number of chargers that are available because they're breaking down. Their chargers are 10 years old. They've got hardly any car sales, so they're not being used much. They're breaking, and the automotive industry is basically pushing back against electrification. However, the sales are slowly growing, and they're dominated primarily by microcars, like the ones shown here. I'll just skip through these. Got to mention the USA. The USA is interesting because it's a game of two halves, as we know, Republican, Democrat, EV and SUV. 8% of new car sales are EVs, but actually, if you look at it, it's if you split it, 30% of car sales are EVs, but only 6% of light vehicle sales are EVs, because basically, as we know, the Americans, they love their pickup trucks, and so you've effectively got America's this two-speed country. You've got Tesla, the world's most famous EV brand, but you've also got this absolute love of gas-guzzling pickup trucks. And you can see that shows you where the EVs are being sold, basically massively dominated by California and the other sort of technology states. And that's their infrastructure as a result. You've got big patches in the middle where there are no EV chargers, whereas California, you have no problem at all. Just to finish on China, China's the biggest at everything, obviously, biggest population. They have more chargers in the world than all the rest of the world combined. They've got a very healthy ratio of cars to charger, and new car sales, 38%. So when the speaker earlier was talking about the quantity of cars in the world, I mean, China massively dominates it. Most EVs are made in China. They've got BYD's the biggest manufacturer of EVs in the world. And they've got lots and lots of chargers, though an Oxford University study found that a lot of them aren't used at all. Some of them only at 1% utilisation. And they have stupid things like chargers on fully pedestrianised roads because they're just trying to meet government targets. So, yeah, that's the end, don't worry. Yeah, just to say there's quite a lot of differences around the world. I can talk about other countries. I won't because I know I'm out of time. Yeah, I'd love to talk to anybody about their experiences with public charging afterwards. Thank you. Thanks. Cheers.